So, as everybody knows by now, I love my Tau. And we are not in a good place right now. And I don't think it's a sheer matter of numbers not being tuned correctly. I think there are some fundamental problems with our faction and our index. And I am very heartily eating my words in my faction focus when I said that I thought the Tau would be very, very strong. I've tried to record this video a number of times. And the other times, I went so negative with my honest opinions and reactions and emotions and everything that I actually gave myself depression after recording them. Now, I'm going to be taking the footage from that and properly cutting it together and releasing it as a members only and patrons only video. So if you're interested in seeing that, then make sure you become a YouTube member or go to my Patreon link and become a patron. Both functionally serve the same purpose. You get access to the Pantheon Studios Discord as well as a bunch of other stuff, but they will have access to that video. For this one, I don't like the idea of putting out a bunch of negativity without anything to follow it up. I genuinely believe that when we can be some sort of positive within our community, we make our community better. Because one of the things that I despise the most is when somebody just flat out just berates something or somebody, or toxicity between different individuals within the same faction or whatever, when really we should all just be commiserating with each other over GW's honestly massive, massive mistake with our index. So let's talk about all that stuff, and let's talk at the end about what I think can be done about this entire problem. But first, sponsor for the video is Irresistible Force. They're an LGS that has been with us since the very beginning. They are an amazing supporter, and I feel really passionate about supporting LGSs, not just Irresistible Force, but any local space that gives you room to play. In Australia, and I'm sure it's happening in other countries, there are entities for us, it's things like Gap Games and Emperor, that provide nothing to the community, no play space, no areas for people to go and coalesce. They don't run tournaments. They don't add anything. They have a shelf set up on a news agency or as part of some other shop, and then they just sell everything online. And what it's doing is driving our LGSs out of business. So head to the link in the description. It's an affiliate link, so they will know that I'm the one that sent you. Irresistible Force are doing 20% off all GW products, matching most of these basement bin places, but IF also provide a play space for anybody that wants to come in. They have an amazing store. I actually got to take a walk through and have a look at everything that they are doing and providing, and the shop is just really, really fantastic. So if you're like me and you're passionate about keeping our local gaming stores open, please go and support them, even if it's not from my sponsor. Please help us keep LGSs alive. Go and support Irresistible Force. Go and support your LGS and keep open places that are a haven for tabletop players and role players and everything else. Thank you so much to Irresistible Force. I'm so proud to be helping an LGS stay in business, and the amount of support that they've given me is incredible. So go and check them out. All right, with all the preamble and stuff out of the way, I have been severely disappointed with Tau. Now, don't get it twisted. It's not because I'm terrible and I'm getting my ass handed to me. I have a 66% win rate on the faction in tournament settings. But that 66, it feels horrible playing those games. And I have recently had to, for a team's event, in order to not let the team down, look at other armies. And I've got a bunch of amazing friends that have been willing to lend me out armies and all that sort of stuff. And I was looking at GSC and Thousand Suns. Unfortunately, we couldn't secure a GSC army. So I've been looking at Thousand Suns, but I had to learn both. And this is something that I'm very good at, is picking up, learning, and replicating information very, very quickly. It's one of the things that made me incredibly good in the military and in my current career, which I can't talk about. So when I was reading these, the biggest thing that stood out to me is that the rules felt cohesive, they felt thematic. It felt like somebody who liked the faction wrote them. And I mean that in the most literal sense of the word. The inference being that I don't think the person who wrote the Tau Codex likes Tau. And I mean that in two different ways. Either one, they don't like the faction, they just got handed an assignment and they just wrote up a bunch of rules that were whatever. Or, and this is the more likely one, they were somebody that had been tabled a couple of times by Tau, thought, fuck these guys, and gutted everything that made our faction good in 9th. All of our weapon profiles took nerfs. Our ranges took nerfs. Our units have uninteresting rules. We have 0 keywords. 0! We have devastating wounds on hammerheads and broadsides and shit, maybe something else, I don't know. And I read the Thousand Sons army. The army can just get devastating wounds every turn just for free, or lethal hits, or sustained hits. You know, the sustained hits that we have to jump through 1 billion hoops to get and wait till turn 3? Thousand Sons get it for just whenever they want. Just because they picked it. Now, yes, it's only on psychic weapons, but there's a ton of ways to do that. There's a strat to turn their weapons psychic for a unit. I have a Terminator squad that is continually just, like, no other term for it. They fuck. They hard fuck as if they're 20 years old and just found out what their dick was. And then you've got other synergistic things, like you put Magnus. This awesome big boy that gives everything around it with psychic weapons +1 to hit and wound. And then you throw in a sorcerer to a unit. It gives the unit lethal hits, just cause. And then you've got a Cabal point system, which is an additional thing that gives you the ability to turn off someone's armor save. Or move twice, just for free, no CP costs. Oh, well, not for free, but you build for Cabal points and then you can move twice. You can Doombolt and do potentially, what is it, D6 +6 mortal wounds or some shit? And GSC feels so thematic. And they're strong as hell. The demo packs are ridiculous. You have units that are constantly coming back. You have a bunch of ways to move the blip so that people can't just walk into them and get rid of them. The army is so synergistic and it feels great. And yes, these armies are dominating the meta at them. Well, Thousand Sons is 50%, but I think that's got a bit to do with the delta between good players and bad players, which used to be the thing in 9th for Tau. But then I go back and I look at our army and what the fuck was GW doing? And honestly, it has killed my passion for the faction a little bit until we get some sort of cohesive rules. I don't need to be broken. I don't need to have the strongest army in the game. But having stuff that feels cool makes you want to play the army. It makes you want to buy models. It makes you want to fill out different bits and pieces. I'm not getting that. I'm not getting that from an army that I was previously so passionate about, because they arbitrarily went, okay, you can only have cool shit from turn 3 onwards. Your for the greater good rule is something so divisive that the entire community is non-stop arguing and bitching about it. Which, by the way, shout out to all the people that were really particularly vitriolic and abusive in my previous video, talking about the idea that maybe the rules that GW wrote down could be their intention, that that's what they meant. Fuck all you people. If anybody comes onto my channel, I don't do this for a living. I'm not I have a career. I already have shit to do. I'm doing this because it's fun and because I like talking in front of a camera, and, you know, I can make a little bit of a side thing and run tournaments and do all that sort of stuff. If people show up like that on my channel, I'm just going to remove your comment. So if you don't get a response from me, likely that means you've done something to be a dick. Now, that's not people that disagree with me, but that is people that know that they are being a dick. Like, I had somebody tell me that I was abusing other players by getting a 3-up. And by the way, I played both variations of a daisy chaining and just 2 units at a time. I felt no actual difference in the games. Some of my incidental units shot a little bit better, but we're getting damage out of 2 or 3 units at the moment. It's not like our entire army is amazing at shooting. Most of our stuff got gutted in either range or lethality. So even if stuff is hitting on 3s, you're doing just as well as Thousand Sons, which hit on fucking 3s naturally. 2s if you've got Magnus standing nearby. and they get to interact in the fight phase. The number of small-minded people that have lashed out over this shows me that there is an enormous amount of people that do not want Tau to have nice things. They don't want us to exist. And to be honest, I'm kind of getting sick of apologizing for my existence. And I see this a lot, where people on Reddit will preface like, oh, I don't want to break things. I don't want to whatever. But like, we're a 35% win rate army. Improvements need to happen, or we are going to be outside of the delta of what GW said that they wanted. Stop apologizing for your existence. It's okay to exist. It's okay for us to have cool rules. The rest of the fucking game has it. Sorry, Death Guard, I know you don't. I know you don't, Votan. I'm there with you. But most of the rest of the game has cool fucking rules. Why shouldn't we have the same? Now, and I have to address the elephant in the room. Why in the shit did our towering units get nerfed? People were barely taking them. Mostly they're doing crisis suits and whatever else. They gave us something which could be considered anti-tank and might be taken in 2s at most. But still, that was still an expensive thing. And they nerfed us because towering in other armies was a problem. The release of 10th has given me such a shaken faith in GW. They're like, go and watch my faction focus and everything. I was going into it being like, you know what? They've done a great job with 9th. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's whatever. And just, I don't understand what they've done. And honestly, other Tau players should be furious at the creator. Not at other people, not at whatever. They should actually be furious for what we've given. Speak with your wallets. Don't buy anything. Anyway. So then you got to look at probably just how angry I was when I recorded my members only video. All right, so what needs to happen about this? Well, first and foremost, I want you to look at 2 different data sheets and we'll look at what the fuck happened. So right in front of us, we have the Mutalith Vortex Beast. Now, this is a Thousand Suns unit. This is, in part, some of their heavy support. And I want to highlight a couple of things. The first is, do you notice similarities between the wounds, the movement, and the points, which is 145? Well, this thing is what a Hammerhead wishes it was. Not only does it have a 5-up invulnerable save and a 5-up feel no pain. At the end of its movement phase, you roll a d6 for each enemy unit that's within 6 of it. Not visible, just within 6. Anything other than a 1, they take mortal wounds. 2 to 3 is 1, 4 to 5 is D3, and on a 6, D6 mortal wounds. And then each of those enemy units must take a battle shock test. Cool. Cool. Then they have an ability, an aura, while they're within 6 inches of a Thousand Suns Psyker, you double the range that rituals specify a range on. You can turn off someone's armor at 36 inches. You can doombolt somebody at 36 inches. You can have one of your Psykers order another Psyker to re-roll failed saves and all that sort of stuff. And then on top of that, they have 3 different ranged profiles as well as 2 melee profiles. The ranged weapon, they have a beam attack, which is 1 attack, 24 inches, less range, sure. Hitting on 3s natively. Strength 18, neg 4, d6 plus 6 damage. Does that look familiar to anybody? Slightly less strength, but who gives a shit? It's wounding almost everything on 3s. Actually, no, I think everything on 3s. Neg 4, d6 plus 6 damage straight off the bat with devastating wounds. And then, if you're not shooting at something big, you've got a blast attack. D6 plus 3 number of attacks. Strength 9, AP 2, damage 2. This thing has a blast attack, which is better than our goddamn Cyclics. And then you've got a Warp Vortex. Torrent, ignores cover. 2d6 shots. Strength 6, AP 1, damage 1. And then for melee attacks, you have a choice between 15 attacks. Yes, I said that correctly. 15 attacks at strength 7, AP 0, damage 1. Or 5 attacks at strength 9, AP 2, damage 4. Which there's, so far as I've seen, There are a handful of things in the game that have damage 4 and above. On top of all this, a 5-up Feel No Pain and a 5-up Invulnerable Save for the same points as a Hammerhead. Now, yes, these do not benefit from the Thousand Suns abilities and whatever else. But there are some, because this gains the Thousand Suns keyword, or it has it, there are some Cabal point rituals that work on it. But the trade-off for, oh no, you don't generate Cabal points, but your data sheet is fucking insane. There's a reason this thing is being brought all the goddamn time. I'm taking, like, multiple of them. What happened? Really? Like, seriously, our accelerated burst cannons got nerfed. Our SMS got nerfed into the ground. The railgun got nerfed into the ground. Doesn't ignore invulns anymore, which it needs to be a viable unit. Or an anti-keyword. If it was anti-vehicle or monster 2+, that shit is great. And I'll be taking 3, maybe 4 in every single list and finding a way to move other stuff out that solves their anti-tank. But Thousand Suns get that. And that is not even their best data sheet. On top of all their army rules. We got fucked, Chassos. We got bent over a barrel, tied down, and had an entire town have a go. So, what needs to happen? First and foremost, our data sheets need to be basically reverted. Because not a lot changed functionally from 9th to 10th. I learned all of the Tau data sheets in a couple days because most of my rote learning from 9th still existed. Cyclics are the same. Plasma's almost the same. You just remember a pip of AP being gone. We need AP range and number of shots back on a lot of weapons. Now, you don't need to give all 3 of those things back to those weapons, but Plasma needs to be 30 inches again. 100%. Like, you can't take range and AP off of them and expect people to want to take them. You need to give burst cannons 6 shots back. If you're going to have something terrible at strength 5, which most things are T5 now, no AP and 1 damage with 2 less shots, that's terrible. Accelerated burst cannons need to go back to what they were. Just flat, that profile needs to go back to what it was. Our Riptide, our units that exist in an anti-tank world, the Iron Accelerator needs to go up to probably strength 12, at least. Maybe strength 11 or 10 would be a fair-ish compromise. Or if you're going to have a burst cannon that's dog shit, give it anti-infantry. If you're going to have the Riptide's Iron Accelerator, give it anti-vehicle or monster 3+. You don't need devastating wounds on it. You don't need whatever else. You just go, hey, this is the function of this gun. It can still be okay into heavy infantry or whatever else. You want the heavy burst cannon if you're in a meta of... Like, GSC is a perfect example. Maybe heavy burst cannons would be fantastic into that army because it's volume. Give the weapons defined profile. You've handed it out to everybody else like candy. It's all through the Space Marine Index. It is all through Thousand Suns having devastating wounds, lethal hits, or sustained hits. And also, you need to stop with the 9th edition Kauyon Montkar bullshit. Having your army rule for only half of the game is not fun. Nobody enjoys this. We interacted with it because we were forced to. Apologies, Chassos. My dog is currently assaulting my feet. Hard life being a dad. And if our weapons don't have identities, they're not fun to use. You just see a 35% win rate and a hemorrhaging of players. There's not a lot of people playing Tau right now. And among those people, there's not a lot of them doing well with it. There are a handful of individuals, and I'm actually very proud to say that there was a player getting a lot of clout that is in my Discord that went 4-1, I think it was, at a GT, which... just congratulations. I'm so proud to have them as one of my patrons. We've done a ton of discussing in the Discord and having them share their list and their ideas and everything else. And that's something that I'm so proud of for my community, just to have community members like that. But anyway, there's not a lot of people that are able to pilot them well because you don't have anything which is a baseline power. And Tau already had a huge delta. Like the people that were at the bottom were well at the bottom in ninth. Like everybody, well, sorry, I say everybody, a lot of people like to complain about Tau. Most of the time I've found that those people are not good at the game. The reason that they complain about Tau is because they don't understand terrain rules, didn't have enough terrain on the table, or don't understand how to screen and stop Tau from being able to do all their damage at range. And it makes sense that this army should be strong at range. Look at the... Can you see my dog showing up in the thing? Ah! Mushu, what are you doing? Get on your bed. Look at the dominance of the longbow and then eventually the gun throughout history. Nobody was taking melee weapons unless they had to. You had bayonets, but whatever. The reason that these things were so damn dominant is because doing all of your damage from range was incredibly strong. You had nobody slapping you back. You didn't have losses in the same degree as a melee. And I mean that in the literal sense where everybody just piles in and you have a big-ass melee. So, Tau should be able to be strong at range. I think a lot of people didn't mind the playstyle of being lethal at range, but also being made of paper. And unfortunately, that's also gotten worse with the removal of drones. Like, I don't mind having my crisis suits be 6 wounds, but the ablative drones that would be attached, the ablative wounds that would be attached to a unit went a long way at keeping a unit alive. And I don't think the new drone system is good. I think the new drone system was designed around making for the greater good work with, marker drones and whatever. I think probably the biggest thing that needs to happen is that whoever is writing our codex needs to not be whichever person wrote this index. Because whoever wrote this index does not like us. They do not want us to succeed. They don't understand what makes the faction work well and fun and inviting for the type of person that is into Tau. They are the sort of person that wants to watch us crash and burn, and they shouldn't be allowed to write an index like that. No faction in this game should be written by somebody who genuinely does not want them to succeed and at least sit within the 45 to 55% win rate margin that GW has said is their metric for a successful, balanced army. Now, yes, there are other problems in the game and people are overperforming and blah, blah, blah. But other people getting nerfed does not actually drive us up. There are fundamental problems with our index that need to be reviewed and fixed. And GW have already said they're going to have a hands-off approach on data sheets and whatever else. So at best, we can probably expect point changes. Maybe they'll be more aggressive than that, but I don't know. I don't know that I see it. And I'm happy to eat my words on that. I'm happy to eat my words if they spring into action and change a bunch of stuff, which makes it really, really fantastic. But GW fucked up so hard with this index, I am just flummoxed. Though, having said that, there are still ways to make our faction work. One of the biggest things is that you need to design a list where, one, you solve your anti-tank first. I'm leaning more towards broadsides to achieve that. Singular Storm Surge could still be the play, but with WTC and a lot of tournaments ruling the first floor blacked out, it means you can stand within the footprint of a ruin and not be seen through it. That is actually a double nerf to Tau, because we no longer also have the speed and the tools to get around buildings like that and kill people that can just sit there for the entire game not doing anything. So, what does that mean? You need trading pieces. You need chaff. You need objective scorers. You can get tabled, and this is something you need to lean into, the Tyranids and stuff are doing at the moment, where you build a list where you go, cool, you are going to table me by the end of the game, but I'm going to score minimum 90 points. And if you can't outscore me, or I can deny you scoring, then you will lose, even if I have no models left on the table. This is where Vespid are fantastic. This is where I've seen smaller bricks of crisis suits working quite well, sitting in deep strike and being able to come down at appropriate moments. Vespid are just amazing. You can have them start on the table if you want, and then pick up at the end of your opponent's turn and have them as a piece that can come down in corners of the battlefield to do investigate signals. Or bring them down in the deployment zone to do teleport homers. In the current state of the game, there aren't a ton of armies that are sitting on infinite resources of things to go out and screen and stand in the open or whatever else. A lot of people are having to have things that go out, deal damage, score the game, and if you've got crisis suits and whatever else, you will be able to slap back. It's not like our army can't do damage at all. But for how flimsy we are, we can't kill enough of our opponent's army to stop being flimsy, being a problem, and outright win the game. In a very similar way to what a lot of the top armies can do to other people right now. So, build a list which is full of fast, cheap, deep strikey, shenanigan things. Like, you know, Piranhas, Tetras, Crisis Suits, Vespid. Hell, even if you want to, go Krutox Riders. To have one sitting on the backfield objective so you don't have to have anything sitting there and you just go out and hide in different parts of the board. Have Ghost Killers and Firesight Marksmen so that you can abuse Lone Operative to live through the game longer. Not have a bunch of indirect stuff just destroy everything on the board. And believe in the greater good. The GW are going to fix us. Because as much as I love being a pessimist and a realist, and believe me, nobody stares into the void longer per day than I do. But there has to be something better coming. Really, there does. And I know that this may seem like a big left turn from the rant that I had, but I'll be honest, I needed that rant. And I think it's okay if you need that rant too, because we deserve better. Honestly, we do. I've actually been thinking about making a video on, and maybe I will, talking about, I've started reading the Farsight books, or listening. I've listened to the entire first one, Crisis of Faith. In which, by the way, spoiler, give you some time, go forward 20 seconds. Okay, spoiler, he doesn't actually have a Crisis of Faith in it. It's just kind of a series of unfortunate events. Anyway. Okay, so now non-spoiler. I've been thinking about talking about that and just how I can see people's criticisms for Phil Kelly's writing. Because not only on the tabletop are we kind of disappointing, I think there's been a big misstep with what Tau could have been. Like the Ethereals being... spoiler, again, go forward 20 seconds. The Ethereals being these like mind-controlling, evil... Nazi dictators, maybe not Nazi, like the Soviet Union. It just feels phoned in. It doesn't feel as creative as it could have been. Imagine a world where the Ethereals are actually just incredibly diplomatic, well-spoken, shrewd individuals that lead because of genuine inspiration and idealism. And Farsight, not because he's, oh, you lied to me, brr. But he left because of his lust for war and him believing that you can't bring everybody into the fold, having seen the terrible things that humanity has done to a number of entities, seeing the threat the demons pose and the warp poses to the real world, finding the naivety of the Ethereals being incredibly short-sighted, went out to effect war onto the galaxy to protect the spheres. Imagine how much better of a story that would have been. Fuck, should I write a book? Anyway, this has been my ramblings. I hope it's cohesive. I hope that at the end of the day, it shows some people that you're not alone in what you're feeling. And if you're feeling something different, let me know down in the comments. Again, just be, you know, a human being about it and don't go lashing out and screaming and screeching and whatever. But, yeah, I genuinely love this faction, and I really want the best for them. And at the moment, GW have said that they don't want the best for us. So, hopefully something better's coming. Anyway, I'll catch you in the next one, Chassos.